how can you do that? Owen here was a student of mine maybe 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, something like that, and has already started up a company, got it off the ground, and sold it. So he's he was one of you guys, right? He was in here taking rigorous courses, right? But choosing this idea of like, hey, there's a way out there other than just going and being, working for a minimum wage somewhere, right? So that's there is an alternate route, and you guys are uniquely in a setting that could get you ready for it. All right. So, Mr. Burns, you can take over.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely.
I'm Owen. So I'm here because over the past 3 years, I ran a startup called ToolCharm, which we sold recently while being a student at UCF. If I'm correct, I believe that you guys all signed up for this talk, so I'm sure that there is some interest in entrepreneurship in this room. And the reason I see a lot of people become interested in entrepreneurship are twofold. They want to be their own boss and they want to get rich. And some people will try and tell you that money is an immoral motivator for starting your own company. I'm here to tell you that's wrong. I mean, there's no such thing as a good startup that doesn't make money. So, chase your ambitions. But a lot of people will see statistics like this, like 90% of startups fail, or the average founder is 42, and think, oh, I mean, I didn't get into Stanford or MIT, so there's no chance I'm going to succeed. Or it's too risky, I'm going to fail, or I'm too young. And I mean, I kind of thought the same thing going into UCF. I never planned to be an entrepreneur, it just kind of happened. And over the course of running this company, I learned that all three of those things are not good reasons to not start. And any of you guys can do it. The reality is that investors prefer companies with products that have a good market. Ivy League students just tend to understand this, and now you guys do too. 90% of companies don't fail randomly. They fail because they deliver a product that doesn't have a market that wants to buy it. And not 42, but now is the best time to start. Because if you start now and you start learning now, eventually you'll be ahead of the people that didn't start now. And not only that, but right now when you're in high school, college, while you're a student, is the only time in your life that you'll be surrounded by adults with more experience than you that are out to help you rather than compete with you. So you could go to a professor and give them your idea, and instead of trying to take it or, tell you it's dumb and then do it themselves, people will be trying to help you. And so over the course of running the company, I came to this conclusion. So I'm going to go through the 4 phases of life that I experienced and the lessons we learned along the way. Starting, of course, at the beginning. Like I said, I never planned to be an entrepreneur. Who in here has heard of a hackathon and knows what that is? You do? Wow, the more people in this group know what that is than any other previous group. But for those who don't, it's an app development competition. That's either like 36 or 48 hours, usually like a weekend thing. You go in and you develop an app, and whoever has the coolest app or the most useful, whatever the criteria is, wins a prize. It could be like a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch or something like that. And I was just a student at UCF, and my buddy from high school, he would be here if he wasn't busy, but he's right there, texted me and asked, hey, I have this idea for a product that'll help people without computer experience use these APIs more efficiently. Do you want to build that as a hackathon project? I was like, sure. And we built it. We didn't place or win anything. It was our first hackathon. But in doing that project, I realized that if we kept developing this is something that I think people could use. So we decided after that weekend to keep building it. One day we went to the student union and saw this advertisement for the UCF JavaScript competition, a pitch competition. Anybody with a company idea can enter it, maybe win a little money. And we entered it, and we did actually happen to win some money. So that kind of gave us that starting motivation to move forward, a little bit of capital. But at that point, I didn't realize it until later on, but we had just committed the first cardinal sin of startups, which is to create a company based on a product idea. If you want to be an entrepreneur and you take nothing else away from this talk, take away this. Discover a problem before being married to a solution. And before going on with the rest of the talk, I have an activity, like a thought experiment that Professor Mike Pate at UCF taught us that forces you to think in the correct order about finding a product that actually will have a market for it. And it starts off by kind of filling out this Mad Lib of identifying a frustration that you see. It could be a frustration that you see or somebody else around you has. And basically, I observed that some customer segment are frustrated with doing some part of their job because, as I discovered while investigating underlying secrets, they lack some knowledge, resources, or motivation to do it, resulting in some kind of negative outcome. And over the course of us restarting and working on different things during this company's history, our frustration changed a lot. But by the end of it, what we observed that companies building AI agents are frustrated with enabling their agents to connect to different pieces of software they want the agent to be able to use, because they lack easy and reliable ways to ensure that the agent knows how to use the software, resulting in very limited agents and limited ROI on the development. So I'm going to give like 5 minutes for you guys to think of some frustration that like you had at work, you see other people had, that is underserved. It's a problem you've experienced, and maybe it's just not a good way to do it. So I'll put a 5-minute timer on for that.
Again, you guys aren't in the workforce yet, but I'm sure you've been frustrated by something, right? Or you're on social media, people are complaining about stuff all the time, right? Is that an opportunity, right? That's your thinking now. Change your mindset to an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's an important point. Really what I think separates someone who's built a new question.
So you're basically saying be a solution solver? So you're basically saying be a solution solver?
Yeah, the difference between somebody who's going to become a successful entrepreneur and anybody else is if they experience a frustration, instead of just saying like, dang, it sucks, but this is how I have to do it, they think, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. And then also, if I'm experiencing this problem, other people probably also have the same problem, and they'd probably be willing to pay for a solution to it. And that is all that investigating underlying secrets means. It means that as you're going through your daily life, when you see problems that you think there's got to be a better way to do this, if you look into that and find out that there is not a better way to do it, and other people have the same problem as you, you've just discovered market opportunity, and that's what successful companies are made of.
So there's no wrong answer on this paper. You got chairs.
Unrelated, but you look at something.
You know, look. I feel like I usually look at let me give this example.
Anybody else see something?
So he asked, how do you find people that are experiencing these problems? And one really good anecdote that I heard while just kind of talking to some people is, I don't remember the name of this guy, but there was somebody staying just like at a hotel, and he wondered like, what happens to all this hotel soap when it's, people leave and they use like half the bar. So we asked one of the cleaning ladies there, like, what do you guys do with all this like soap product that's just left over? And the answer was that they throw it away. And so what he did is he created basically like a soap recycling company that would buy all of this soap refuse from hotels at dirt cheap, because it's going to be thrown away anyway, basically free. And they had a facility where they could basically clean it and then reform it into new soap products and sell that at a huge markup. And he ended up becoming very successful that way, just because he discovered the the frustration of like, what are we going to do with all this soap? Just throw it away? That's not a good solution. So he came up with a better solution of what to do with it.
So you can be motivated by random things with your environment.
Yeah, completely right. I think that's looking with a critical eye to find inefficiencies. It's just looking around with the idea of trying to find problems to solve.
And I know Owen talks about it later, but if you're worried, like, hey, I don't want to put this down because somebody's going to take my idea.
Yeah, don't be. I'll get into that later, but don't be.
And there's an other thing about goal setting, if you've ever heard about goal setting and how much higher percentage you are to achieve a goal if you simply write it down. So again, starting with this idea of writing something down and having it there has a way of making things happen, right? It becomes more real when it's in print. Like, we already have one down? There's just no problems in the world. I want to live in your world.
What?
He'll get into
Yeah,
that.
Okay, so before I have everybody share, I'm going to move on to the second part of this thought exercise. So once you've identified a frustration that represents some market opportunity, you go through the rest of identifying it as a problem and then coming up with a solution. So the customer segment you identified wants what method for the job to be done? What makes what you're going to be delivering better than what they already have to do? For us, it was companies building AI agents want out-of-the-box method to ensure that the agents they're building know how to use these software tools. So they don't have to do any configuration on their end to add new tools on it. It's just, it works. And then our solution to that was to build this platform where an AI agent would just know what it should be doing, and it will send that over to the platform. It will say, create this new record in Salesforce with this information. Our system will know how to actually take that action in Salesforce, removing the requirement to do that development for the company building the agent. So starting from your frustration, kind of just identify the desired gain and what you're going to be doing better, and then what solution you think is going to solve that frustration. I'll give another, I'll put 3 minutes on, but I can add more time if people are still writing. See if there's good stuff to write down.
And then we were like, all right, let's get notebook and we'll start writing. Next week it's fun.
Nobody's been even on that before. Yeah, we were having,
Again, you put yourself out there, it's like 99% of the work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's another important, like, when you have an idea, it's just important to get it out there. Like, don't be afraid of people stealing it, especially right now. We just did that pitch competition, any UCF student can sign up for it, but at the end, I have like other pitch competitions written down that even high school students, anybody in Seminole County can sign up for if you win some money. So it's just, the more people can hear your idea, the more feedback you can get, the better an idea becomes.
yeah, we set up on where dude had to come, so get this thing out. But
I see it already.
That's right. We were ready to have
This was many times. That was first place. The whole thing was
amazing guys.
We're able to.
Yeah.
So we just started it.
I mean,
And now we're doing a full If you win, you could put on your
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that shows that you're like serious. You're willing to take your own ideas seriously. Well, I have some at the end that anybody can put. So I have a list that I can.
I'm playing.
Well, yeah. So there's the Joust. That's like the main one. But there's also the Blackstone Launchpad that is competition. We actually placed in both, and the bigger one was the Joust. So that's like Alright, do we need more time, or are people pretty much done for 1 minute? 1 minute? Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
How hard was it to find the right
Library.
Just think about it.
You know you gotta use libraries.
I mean, if you do programming for work, you have to be very used to kind of knowing what packages to use in different situations. You mean the right language? The right language?
No, like the library. Because I've been done like, as a business, I've done like robotics, more with C++. And one of the issues is how we use the libraries. Most of them, they don't like to find them, but they would like, if it not work for them, they wouldn't explain how to use that also.
Yeah, I mean.
Are we on the, is he sharing ideas?
No, he's just asking questions. I mean, just looking online is a good way to find
Yeah, that's, but like,
useful tools.
there was like, all like, some of them just didn't work, so.
Unfortunately, it's like not even an entrepreneur thing, it's just like a software developer thing. I think that's just one of the challenges. It's like, well, there's a lot of trial and error just inherent to it. I mean, I have an M1 Mac personally, and I do AI work, like GPU stuff, and for research outside of the company. I did like AI research, and I can tell you, there's so many libraries out there that say they're compatible with M1 Macs, but then have issues with like ARM64 stuff, and you'll just get all sorts of random errors. There's no real good way to do it, and just like kind of getting. Alright, are we ready? We're still going.
Yeah. Alright, who's gonna be the brave one to share first? Go,
Go
kid!
for it.
I observed that anyone at work or school is frustrated with waking up on time. Because as I discovered while investigating underlying secrets, they lack resources that properly wake them up and motivation to wake up, resulting in oversleeping. They want a desired gain of a type of alarm that actually wakes them up. And so my product is an alarm clock that also dispenses like tea or coffee. And then it has like a weight, like a scale, and a cup that sits in the scale. And so it fills it with tea or coffee. And then it won't stop ringing until you drink all of the tea or coffee and then put it back on the scale.
Oh, God. Quick, downward 20 seconds.
First thing I have to drink your water.
The coffee's cold. That's pretty good.
What if the coffee's too hot and you burn yourself?
Alright, so this is sharing without judgment. Alright, so go ahead now.
Magic shit.
Who else is gonna share? Vlad, go.
I observed that students are frustrated with maintaining a study schedule because, as I discovered while investigating underlying secrets, they lack proper motivation and methods that fit them, resulting in stress. They want study methods and schedules that encourages learning and fits their needs. And one solution is to create an app that schedules study sessions alongside proper timing and necessary break times.
So like a calendar, like an app that will help you with your calendar and fit in study blocks. That's smart. I think that would be very useful for college students that have a lot of good gaps between their classes. If you could find something that would, like, this is probably the best time for you to study for your physics exam. You know, people taking more than 5 classes might need that.
I observed that American patients undergoing physical therapy are frustrated with motivation with doing physical therapy exercises at home. Because, as I discovered while investigating underlying secrets, they lack the drive and encouragement to perform the exercises they need to get better, resulting in postponed recovery. They want motivation to carry out their physical therapy exercises without the process being boring or strenuous. So my product is a VR game that utilizes AI to adapt to the patient's unique recovery plan and helps them carry out their PT exercises and meet their goals in an interactive, fun, and life-changing way.
I want to highlight this. This is the best one that I've heard so far today, because what you did is you identified a very specific customer segment, people in America experiencing physical therapy. That's, that's a very, you can quantify that demographic very well, and I like the specific solution you came up for. Does anybody else have one?
Mine's more of like, cause I get this a lot, but I won't, when someone gets like a new phone, and sometimes they'll get a new number with it, and sometimes they're old numbers from the previous owners. And when that happens, sometimes they'll get their spam calls, their tolls, all their other stuff. And I've observed through multiple times of using my phone currently, that I've been getting calls and text messages, IRS numbers, and they're official. They are official. I've been getting taxes notices. I've been getting all the tolls, their court instances. There are like multiple people. They're all official. I've had people go through it for myself. I even went to Apple support to see what they can do. They basically told me just get something to help you out with. It doesn't work still. But I want to get an app out there that some people can download their phone just so they can get an automatic voicemail if it's actually spam from someone that's not or anything. Or it could just go VP number and get rid of that.
To automatically block it?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I like, somebody else came up with a similar idea to that earlier, but like a landline phone that was able to filter out spam calls. So a lot of people thinking of the same thing today. Who else?
Oh, yeah.
We got two people here. I'll go him, then you.
I've observed that elderly or disabled people are frustrated with the ease of performing daily tasks, most notably I'd say is tying their shoes. I discovered that investigating underlying secrets, they lack resources that help them do those physical tasks that aren't like hired helpers, like caretakers, resulting in many of them just living their lives dependent on others for really small tasks that they should be able to do themselves. So I'd say a reliable and cheap way to tie it in should be a way to solve that problem. And for my science fair project, I think last year, we won first place in engineering. It was exactly that. There's several types of shoes, so that you just put your foot in, and it's like an app on your phone. You use one. They tie it for you.
So that way people can still wear shoes with laces and not
Yeah.
like switch to Velcro shoes. Yeah, see, that's smart. That's I know a lot of people might don't want to switch over to using Velcro shoes. They don't have to.
And with the idea that people internationally are mostly liking productivity, keeping rather gloom occasionally. To solve this situation, we will create a platform that links them to meet many different interests. This increases by giving informational analysis on them. Though
Right. Oh, and then you go too, yeah.
I observed that American consumers of private companies are frustrated with protecting their rights and preventing unjust exploitation from companies that they buy into. Because as I discovered while investigating their underlying secrets, they lack preventative and preparative methods to acknowledge and understand ways companies utilize their terms and services to exploit their target consumer, resulting in exploited and manipulated rights to products or services because nobody can carry a lawyer for everything. They want prepared and protected mindsets to adverse exploitative corporation tactics. My solution is an AI model to mediate and simplify terms and services contracts to fight against personal exploitation from private companies.
I like that. It's another good one.
Oh.
This is definitely the best group so far.
And this is the logo that I made for it.
Yeah.
It's the logo that I made for it.
Wow. Oh, so you're already moving forward. All right. I'll have to catch up with you after this then.
operation teams are frustrated with, not frustrated, but there's a problem into using drones that they use. They're susceptible to damages, like getting caught on trees and getting close to them, and damaging the drone itself can be very, very expensive. Yeah, that damages the blade and if it falls, and that is the problem, that replacing all these parts is really expensive. So my solution is creating a new type of drone that, instead of having the propellers outside susceptible to the things, instead it has propellers are inside the drone with the exoskeleton protecting the outside, and all the batteries and all the other items are on as a circle, will be like a circle. And these drones will be way smaller and thinner, and being able to deploy faster.
Yeah, I could see a use for like really cheap, hardy rescue drones that you can smash against the wall. It would still be fine if the exoskeleton is able to resist it. Alright, I'll take like one or two more and then move on.
I updated my information. Okay, so people internationally are constantly lacking product adaptability, giving rather than like, hey, to solve this situation, we're great at platform that links them to many different interests. By giving informational analysis on them using profiling, and we will track their interest. We will track them for about 1 week to keep up with their adaptability.
So we'll find, basically, you'll connect people with stuff that they would likely be interested in.
Yeah,
based on their
and
search.
keep up with them for a week in case we don't keep up. They accidentally find other things.
I can see that. We'll find hobbies that they otherwise wouldn't have found.
Yeah, because
Makes
the human
sense.
body changes constantly.
Yeah. Alright. So at this stage in our product, we had this idea that we thought was gonna, win the world, a great startup idea. We just want to pitch competition. So naturally, we do the logical thing, and we buy tickets to the largest startup conference in America with no product. And we fly out there and think, all right, we got this great idea. We're gonna go and talk to these investors, these customers. People are gonna want to buy in. We're gonna get all this investor money, get an office, and scale up super quick. But we really quickly realized that that is not actually how it works. And as a matter of fact, another point to take away from this is that startup ideas themselves are not worth anything. That's kind of what Mr. Back was saying earlier. Don't be afraid to write it down. As a matter of fact, you could have the idea for the next Google, and if you don't actually act on it, it doesn't matter if you talk about it. It's not, the idea itself is not worth anything. We went to this conference, we talked with all these people, we came back and we realized there's nothing we could really do to act on these conversations because we don't have a product to deliver. The reality is that if you're not already doing everything in your power and using all the resources available to you to make your company succeed, no one else is going to come in to help you because you have to be the biggest advocate for your company that there is. So having learned this lesson, we moved into the reason that I call this the startup roller coaster, which is the product development phase of the startup, where you go from just being your founding team with an idea to being a legitimate company and exiting or getting customers or having your IPO or whatever way that you exit from the company. And I think that this picture really encapsulates, this picture is what really encapsulates how it feels during that phase of the company's life. You'll have moments where you think, oh, this contract is going to be the thing that gets me into Y-Com and I'm going to be a millionaire, and then it falls through. You'll have moments where you'll see a product come out and you think, oh, everything I've worked on is worthless, we got to start over. And you'll be tempted to throw in the towel and give up. And I mean, you won't get anything out of it. But you could also keep going and eventually end up here and not go back down. Because I like to say, you can't stay unlucky forever. Eventually you're gonna get the win if you just refuse to accept the loss. Over the course of the 3 years we worked on ToolCharm, we restarted from scratch 4 times after months of work each time. So the idea we took to TechCrunch Disrupt, this idea of a UI for API calls. Who here has heard of Zapier? You've heard of Zapier? So basically, for those who haven't heard, it's this platform where you can take actions from different services like Google Calendar or whatever you use, and basically build a flowchart, like if this, then that, and it will run actions for you automatically. At the time, there was no way to add custom inputs to these forms. The actions were very limited. Until they released this thing called Zapier Forms that basically did exactly what we were doing, but with an existing huge customer base. We realized that there was no point in tune with what we were working on. Like we had to pivot to something new. And so we pivoted to the second version of ToolCharm. We took what we learned from version 1 and we thought, okay, it's not going to work to just do this UI for API calls. What if we allowed people to build collaborative workspaces where, like Google Docs, you have multiple people looking at the same thing at the same time. But instead of just editing text, you could have these kind of Zapier-like actions. If you have a task at work where you have to use 10 different pieces of software, instead of navigating between all 10, you just have the actions from them extracted in one place, and you have a workspace for that task that doesn't require you to switch to a bunch of different apps. We realized within probably like a semester of working on this that it wasn't really technically feasible for just 2 people, and ChatGPT came out, and we realized that it was time to switch to leverage that or get left behind, basically. The next phase, we tried to develop this agent that used AI to automate any mundane task you have at work. The idea was that you could tell it, like, set up an email with this person, and it would handle that mundane back and forth of finding a time that works for everybody. You could tell it, I just got this email chain with this information from this customer. I need you to go add it to my CRM so that their contact is updated. Just copy this information from here to here. And we spent the most time out of any iteration on this one, even though it ended up not working out. There were a lot of down points there. One summer we interned at Morgan & Morgan. I'm sure you guys have all seen billboards. And so we thought that, internally it's a law firm. There's a lot of stuff that they could automate. They seemed interested in the beta for us. They told us they were interested in the beta. We spent $5,000 having a lawyer draw up this very detailed contract illustrating all the terms, just for them to change their mind. We were at $5,000 and basically back at square one. So we were going to have to just kind of pick up and be like, all right, well, it looks like we're just going to keep developing this on our own. We did. We got to the point where we thought we were ready for an open beta, maybe bring some investors in, which honestly, looking back, is still way too early to bring investors in. But we got interest from one. The first demo went well. And then we had a second demo with them where they brought in a managing partner, and it looked like we were going to start talking about terms. We did a demo for them, and it failed catastrophically. There was no recovering from that, and it was evident that there was not going to be a next conversation. Then later that same day, OpenAI announced ChatGPT plugins, which was the first way that they were going to allow their AI to connect to services and do tasks for you automatically. And we thought, oh, we're cooked, this is it. And then within a week, it was kind of evident that the features for these plugins were very limited. So we ended up keeping working on it until the Y Combinator Winter 24 batch, where they funded a bunch of these AI agent companies that basically did the same thing we were working on. We were in the top 10% of that batch, but didn't make the cut. And at that point, we realized that there were too many fish in the water to be competing with directly. And so we packed it up. We decided we were going to pivot again. And we used what we learned building this to build what became our final product, which is the connector between AI agents other people are building and services that allow companies to build these agents easier. Finally, on the 4th product iteration, after many, many, many repositories, just spent months on working and then just scrapped. But we got interest from One Ethos. They saw our demo, everything worked out, and they bought us. And that was it. Or so you would think. In reality, the acquisition process is not as simple as Google coming up with some paperwork and saying, hey, we're going to buy your company for $1 million. On the very absolute low end, it will take a minimum of 4 months to a year or longer, depending on how long you've been operating and how many people are involved. I got 2 pieces of advice for any of you that make it to this stage. Get a good lawyer early. UCF has good resources for that. And save every document that your startup generates while it's operating. We were just a 2-person startup. We didn't have any employees aside from the founding team. And I mean, this was like a week. This was a day. This was the 4 months. It was this due diligence where they basically made sure we were legit. They had to look at our tax returns to make sure we were current on taxes. They took all our business licenses to make sure we were operating legally. They made sure that we gave them financials indicating every single cent that had gone in and out of ToolCharm and what we spent it on over the course of the entire 3 years. We spent a long time looking at old receipts. And they needed to know how many hours we estimated we worked on the company, and all of the internal documentation we had, our board meetings, everything. They needed to look through all of it to make sure that they weren't going to get legally screwed over if they signed this deal. But after after all, is trials and tribulations. Eventually, you'll get to this stage. This is a picture of my business partner and I immediately after we signed the contract. You know, it'll happen. The ink dries, you shake hands. A couple of days later, oh my. Hold on, let me plug my computer in. But the ink dries, and a couple of days later, the wire hits your bank account, and all that work that you put in is suddenly condensed into a check. And there you have it, you're no longer a rookie entrepreneur. And honestly, I'll say that the feeling of having that happen is worth the long nights and the years you put into it. Because it's like a feeling of vindication, unlike anything else. But that's pretty much the whole of the ToolCharm story. When I get my laptop back on, I have a slide with some resources on it, and I can take some questions.
Yeah, that picture of those two could have been taken in my class at Crooms, I think, where they maybe were sitting next to each other at some point, right? That they were two Crooms students, just like you guys, bright with ideas, and came out ahead in the end, right? It's a good place to be to start this journey, right? You're not too young. If anybody tells you you're too young to start doing something like this, they're jealous. Because you guys are at a perfect age where you're smart people, and smart people surround themselves with smart people, and you come up with ideas and have motivations and can make things happen. And college, high school, think about Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. How old were they when they started Microsoft with his high school buddy?
So, so the same professor that came up with the frustration problem and solution exercise that you guys did earlier came up with this, what he calls the startup staircase, that kind of goes through the whole ideal life cycle of a startup. And I have handouts of this for you guys to take home, so don't feel like you have to leave them here. But yeah, it shows that you start off from identifying a frustration, problem, solution. You come up with what solution you're going to do to that product to solve that problem, how you're going to make money from it. You do everything in your power to scale the company as much as you can. And when you've scaled to the limit of what you can do without outside money, then an investor will come in and see, okay, this company has motivated founders, and if we put millions of dollars into it, then it's going to blow up and we're going to get a return on our investment. That's when you should be going to TechCrunch Disrupt, realistically. And then the other thing is I read this book, The Hot Seat by Dan Shapiro. It has a lot of the similar lessons that I talk about in here, but with a lot more anecdotes and details. And I would recommend it to anybody who really wants to go deeper into depth on this type of thing. We have a couple minutes for questions, so fire away.
No, go ahead.
That's a question for him.
How much is sold for?
I don't want to go into that exactly. I mean, I'm not driving a Lamborghini, but it'll pay for most of grad school. Go ahead.
How exactly do you network?
So there's a lot of different local opportunities around. Like UCF has the Blackstone Launchpad Ideas Competition and the Joust. But there's also ones that anybody can join, like 1 Billion Cups has a chapter in Orlando where they'll meet, I think, once a week on Wednesdays, and people will pitch their startup, and then afterwards you can network with other small business owners. Through that, actually, we met some other people that introduced us to other networking events. So it's kind of a process that compounds on itself. Like once you start networking in the startup space, you'll meet people that will introduce you to other people, and then it's just how you build your network. And then Rollins also has the Crummer Venture Plan competition that also anybody in Seminole County can join. So I'll go her and then you.
I just wondered real quick, how do you log your ideas? Like as you experience something you think you could improve, or a kind of a loose idea at first, how do you log those?
I don't think it matters as much how you log it as much as that you do log it. Whatever way works best for you to remember it, I think that'll vary from person to person, but yeah.
All right, guys, go ahead. But have a great, be safe.